This is order of operations with parentheses. In this lesson, your learning target is that you will be able to perform the order of operations when there are parentheses. Where this comes into play is in order to have a good understanding of order of operations with parentheses, you should be pretty comfortable with the basic order of operations. And we're going to use order of operations with parentheses in future lessons when we start to simplify more complex expressions. So let's first review the order of operations. First, we have our grouping symbols. Then we have exponents. Then we have multiplication and division in order from left to right. And finally, we have addition and subtraction in order from left to right. So let's take a look at our grouping symbols. Usually, our grouping symbols are parentheses. So you would do whatever is inside the set of parentheses as your first step. But you can also see square brackets, and again, you do what's inside the square brackets first. We also have absolute value bars, and so you would do anything inside the absolute value bars first. A square root symbol is also a grouping symbol, and you would perform any operations on the inside or underneath that square root symbol. And then finally, the numerator of a fraction is its own group, and the denominator of a fraction is its own group. So these are some of the grouping symbols that you're going to come across. With exponents, we are used to seeing exponents typically with a number as a base, and then there's another number smaller written up top. And so that's usually how we see exponents. But something that we don't think about is taking the square root. When you actually take the square root, that's done on the same step as exponents. Now, the next thing that we would be looking for is multiplication and division in order from left to right. Let's take a look at some of those multiplication symbols, and there are a lot. You've got your little x, you've got the dot. Lately, we've been using the star as a multiplication symbol. And parentheses. Parentheses are difficult because sometimes they're grouping symbols. But other times, if there's nothing to group inside of there, then that could mean it's multiplication. So if you were to see a number directly next to a parentheses and then another number inside, that's multiplication. And then finally, if you're looking at a number or a coefficient next to a variable or a letter, so a number times a letter, the invisible symbol in between is multiplication. So these are some of the ways that we're going to be seeing multiplication. Finally, there's division. We've got our old-fashioned division symbol, and we don't usually see that symbol very often. Usually we might see a slash, but typically when we're looking at division, we are looking at the fraction line. That fraction line actually means you're going to be dividing the numerator by the denominator. So the fraction is another way to see division. For addition, it's just the plus sign, and for subtraction, it's just the subtraction sign. So it's not that complicated. So this is our review of order of operations. We're going to do our grouping symbols. What's inside the grouping symbols first are exponents, multiplication and division in order from left to right, and then addition and subtraction in order from left to right. So let's take a look. And grouping symbols, what they are really doing is just overriding the order of operation. So as we take a look at the problem on the left, 5 plus 2 times 3, we have that problem. But then is our problem going to look different if I put that 5 plus 2 in parentheses as it is on the right? So let's take a look at the left-hand side. In order of our operations, there's no grouping symbols, there's no exponents, so I'd be looking for multiplication. And what we're going to do is multiply 2 times 3 to get 6. So now I'm going to perform the addition, and we have 5 plus 6 is 11. So that's what it looks like without any parentheses. But what if I wanted you to add the two numbers first? I would have to have you use parentheses. So again, we're looking at our grouping symbols, which is our parentheses, and we are going to perform the operation inside of the parentheses. So we're going to do the 5 plus 2, which is 7. Now at this point, since there is nothing to do inside my parentheses, and I already have that multiplication symbol, those parentheses are no longer needed as a grouping symbol. So I can just get rid of them. And what we're going to be left with is just 7 times 3, which is 21. So here we get two different answers, whether or not we have parentheses. For the last problem, we're going to take a look again at just changing the order of operations. So this time I want you to add the 8 plus 2 first. So we're going to look for grouping symbols. We're going to do what's inside the grouping symbols first. So we're going to take that 8 plus 2, and that turns into 10. Now again, I don't have anything else to group, so I don't really need those grouping symbols anymore. So this problem just turns into 4 minus 10, which is negative 6. So that is the end of the screencast where you have learned how to do the order of operations when there are parentheses.